Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu salam ala Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Alhamdulillah. Thank you, my brothers and sisters who will show up in the future. And uh, and this is a kind of an orthodox program in some ways. I asked Subhanahu wa Ta'ala to give me some guidance to it. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wabarakatuh, lil ikwani wa wati. Uh, and I'm hoping that Subhanahu wa Ta'ala bless us tonight and that we talk about an issue that's not really talked about a lot. There's a lot of hollering and screaming about it, but there's not a lot of talk directly uh, about it. There's a lot of conjecture, and this conjecture has been going on for hundreds of years. So I decided to do kind of a series of about the black man and his family. And the first part of the series is an important topic that still affects the black community in particular, which is the black man who sleeps white. And I raised some questions in the chat for those to look at and those to ponder, and for you to think about that and answer it. Answer it. You can put it in the comments section, or you can put it in the chat, or you can wait after the program to put it in the comment section. But there's some things I ask you about this issue, and so which is important because we have not within the black community in particular. Excuse me, my phone went off. I should have had that off. In the black community in particular, we've had issues that we have not settled. One is what we call ourselves. Second is the relationship between the black man and the black woman. Third is the outside influences like dating and marriage to non-African people. And the most troubling, the one that garners the most talk, is that relationship between the black man and the Toubab woman. Now, those who've never joined, this is the first time I use a African vernacular, Mende, Fula, Mandinka. We call Europeans Toubab. This is the designated name that is in this language. It does not mean any foul language directed towards anybody of European descent. It's just the same thing as we say in English European, we say in Mende Toubab. So I'm using the words from my ancestor and their language, which is again Toubab. So anyway, this situation has garnered a lot of talk in yesteryears and even currently today. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brother Bubba. I don't know what you mean by bacon bits. I don't understand. Anyway, the gist of this program is to get us as a black family to think and to ponder this situation and how we can come to grips with it, because it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop any miscegenation. And I use this word miscegenation because this is a legal term. It's an old archaic term, but it really defines the relationship between racial groups. And this is where this miscegenations come from. different racial groups, the intermarriage, dating, sexual escapades with a person of another race. And the miscegenation is what I'm going to be calling it here. And so the first thing that I want to get at this is how does the three major religions look at miscegenation? And we start with Islam. Islam has no prohibition on any interracial marriage. As a matter of fact, our Prophet ﷺ had made it quite obvious in his last sermon before he passed on. And he used a term, he said, a Muslim, Aku Muslim in Arabic, meaning that they are brothers to one another. But he also said something very interesting. He said that in Islam, there's no black over a white, or a white over a black, or an Arab over black or white, any of this, none of that. The only one who is superior is that the taqwa, meaning the faith in their heart. This is what our Prophet said about this issue. In Judaism, there's no such prohibition as well. In Christianity and Orthodox, real Christianity, there's no prohibition. Matter of fact, mixing has been going on for some thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So this is nothing new. But man, of course, has his way to change things around, even though the Subhanahu wa ta'ala or Jehovah has given his laws, man have always found a way to change that. So now we talked about the Jews, Christians, and Islam, and about miscegenation. And I'm going to get a little bit of the history a little bit here, so that way we can be prepared for what I'm going to talk about, because it's going to be hard hitting. And I'm going to be very frank in this talk, because we're adults here, we're not children. So I'm going to be very frank, but I'm going to put some things down. Again, those who come in, who's watching from afar or whatever, you can look at the chat, and there's some questions that I have that I want you to ponder about this relationship, the miscegenation between the black man and a Toubab woman. As I said, there's no barriers in Christianity or Islam or Judaism as far as miscegenation. But when we get down to look at this, the words hypocrites in this field are the so-called Christians. The Christians profess that they are following Jesus' way, and yes, they are the worst offenders and hypocrites in as far as miscegenation, because the Ku Klux Klan and some hardened racist groups believe that they are the first and the foremost patriots of what? Christianity. And they themselves are ardent bigots and racists who fight against miscegenation. Even to this day, as we speak, they still fight against miscegenation. Not the white man with the black woman, but the black man with the white woman is what they focus on. And this has been going on, as we know the history behind that, the lynchings and so forth. Even the thought of a black man even having a relationship with a white woman was enough for him to be killed. So the Christians basically are the worst offenders of this particular situation. Now, in Islam, we have our problems as well. We have the subcontinent, where in the subcontinent, India, somewhat in Bangladesh, and a little bit here and there in Pakistan as well. They have a caste system that they still practice. I'm not talking about all, just some. And even though they're Muslims, they don't believe that a Muslim should marry Indian Muslim or Pakistani Muslim should not marry outside of their particular ethnic group. This is not all. We have some pockets of this. There's a lot of written about this, and they're wrong. So we have our hypocrites as well. They say they follow Islam, but yet and there, when the daughter come home and say, look, I have a boy who wants to marry me, and he's an African American, they immediately say no to it, which they should not do this. They have to have cause to do it, but they use the caste system as a vehicle to say, no, I don't want my daughter marrying an African American. Now, we also know that the Arabs, mainly out from Oman, had initiated slavery, and also we had the African Arabs of North Africa was also involved somewhat in the slave trade. And they also practiced a system where they rarely ever married the black slaves. Okay, I'm talking about the Arab men, but they didn't mate with them because they produced a lot of children, and that's a whole different story in itself. But they rarely, in this stage, the African Arab woman did not mate much with the black African man in this situation. But again, I don't want to talk too much about the African Arabs until another program. I'm going to talk about this issue. So the situation was a sticking point even before Islam came on. And we have the famous story of Antara. All you African Americans, you should go and hit the history books. Antara was a famous black, he was born into slavery. His father is Arab, his mother was a black African woman. And he was born in slavery, but he got his freedom. He was well noted for his war tactics and his great strength. And he was in love with a very, very pale-skinned Arab woman. Her name was Abla. And this is a beautiful love story. Anyone picks up this book. And one of the greatest porters that you could ever find was Antara. And you should read on this ancestral brother. And so this, again, was part of some miscegenation that was occurring. And there's a lot of people against it because he was born as a slave, but also because he was very, very dark-skinned. And at this time, too, the racism that we understand today from many of the white Arabs was coming out because they began to enslave black Africans, and they enslaved them in droves. So this is some of the history, but this famous story here of Antara is something. They even have a program, a serial, series is 30 days, but it's in Arabic, but it's pretty interesting. And then we look at the European miscegenation, which, boy, I'm gonna tell you something. In Europe, the miscegenation between blacks and whites were something else. That type of situation was off the charts. You had a lot of miscegenation going on there in Europe, especially in Western Europe. And we also have historical documents written that Toubab women had fetishes for large and well-endowed African men. Everybody understand what I mean? Well endowed. They had fetishes for that. And we had rich white women who would get slaves, and they would check their loincloth. This is well documented. We're all adults here. And they when they found some of these Africans, and many, matter of fact, who were well endowed, they bought them for sexual pleasure. And this is a true fact. And these fetishes was well documented in Europe. Well documented. And some of these women end up having mulatto babies from their African slaves that they had purchased for sexual pleasure. So we know this relationship existed. We also know too that high-ranking European kings, especially like in France, also had many mistresses who were black and who were white. And I can testify to that because when I had my DNA, one of my great-great-great-grandfathers was Henry VII. Can you believe that? The King Henry VII is actually, I have his, I mean, I'm part of his, yeah, I have his DNA, so to speak. So how did he get that? So that means we know that they also had sexual relations with Black African slaves. We know this. And there's a lot of books on that. Some are so sexually charged, I cannot mention that here. I don't want to mention that because it's very, very sexually orientated. And there's a lot of jargon and way the French wrote about, and even the English wrote about some of the sexual things that were going on in castles. Some of it is very, very explicit. So now we look at something. The Black slaves were taken to America. Now we're going to start getting to now what happened. How do we get to the point of in America the Black man, the brother, and starting to have his relationship with the Toubab woman? We're going to get to there. I'm giving you a backdrop, so I'm preparing you for this. We know the slavery stats here. We know that the Black slaves were taken to America from the Cameroons, West Africa, all the way, yes, to southern part of Morocco. Yes, that's a true fact. They took Black slaves from there. And I know this because of my heritage. We know that we had somebody in my family tree was taken from southern part of Morocco. We know that because my mom's DNA is there. And in the southern, no, matter of fact, all stretching all across Morocco, my mother's DNA is there. They were taken to America. The Toubab built his sexual prowess on the sexual escapades with Black African slaves who were helpless. They could not defend themselves. They could not say no because they were chattel. They were property. And the Toubab slaver built his reputation that lasts up to today, his sexual prowess based upon his escapades with Black African slaves who could not defend themselves. This in turn led to something that is very interesting, again, as I mentioned previously here. When some of the slavers would take the African slaves because of their sexual prowess, and you read journals of some of these slavers, they were quite explicit with how and what they thought of themselves. And they were quite explicit about the genitalia of the African woman as well. And they also wrote about the genitalia of the African men. The slavers did in journals. And one thing we know we found that they were doing is when they boasted themselves up to about their Toubab genitalia, about they were the best, they were this, they were that. Suddenly they pulled the loincloth on many African brothers and found these brothers to be far more well endowed than them. They would castrate our ancestral brothers out of jealousy and fear. That's right, my brothers and sisters. This happened. It's in journals. We know that. So this is a sad epitaph on the Toubab slavers who did this. And so then we get to the point. We know the history of, again, I just mentioned it. We know the history of the Toubab slaver, the man, and his escapades on the plantation with the Black African woman. We know that. It's well documented. But quiet has been kept about the Toubab mistress inside the plantation. We know there's been documents written as well about secret rendezvous the white mistress had with Black slaves. And again, these European Americans, okay, Toubab Americans who came from Europe, some are first generation, second generation, they picked again which kind of African slave. They picked the ones who were well endowed. These, again, white Toubab mistresses of the house of the plantation, of the wife of the slaver, would have rendezvous, and she handpicked certain ones to mate. And she mated with those who were well endowed again. So we know this was also the case. Now, We also know that what happened with the slavers, if they found a black man was having sexual relations with a Toubab woman, period, they would, they would boil him in hot oil, or they would castrate him and hang him from a tree. We know that. We know what they did to this when they found out. It was okay for them to mate our women, okay? But when we mated with their women, then they took offense to this, because they said that we were, less than human beings, and so forth and so on. But yet and still, we're less than human beings, but they found time to have relations with our ancestral sisters. Here's another known fact many of you don't know about. You know the indentured European servitude that happened? The Western Europeans actually had indentured white servants come. They were Sweden, Norway, German, more so. I'm not sure. I don't think Italy was involved, but I know the Eastern Europe, especially the fair-skinned Scandinavian woman, Norwegian woman, and so forth and so on. And they mixed them with black slaves. Do you know that the indentured servitude system stopped because of the relationships that was going on between the indentured Toubab Eastern European woman and the black African male slave? They were mating at a fast clip and having children to boot. So they stopped the indentured servitude of the Europeans and continued the servitude of the Africans. That's a known fact as well. So this is not new, my brothers and sisters. Miscegenation between a black man and a white woman was going on way back even in the 1700s. It's been going on for a long time. Salam alaikum, my dear sister Janelle. How you doing, my dear sister? Oh, wait a minute here. My brothers and sisters, we got some people here that is this is Janelle Gordon here. Let's put one of these sites that they always put on my in my comment section, and when you click it, it's porno. Anyway, I just deleted that message. Sorry for the intrusion here, but they're doing this. And Mr. Bubba, you put bacon bits there. I don't know what this is about, but I think I know what you're trying to drive at, because I'm Muslim, and you know how we feel about that. So the enemy, probably masquerading as a African American, are actually probably Toubabs. So we know their attitudes, we know who they are, and so forth and so on. So anyway, back to this here. This indentured servitude was a turning point in the relationship of the black man and the white woman, because it was very illicit, very, very illicit. He put them together, and there was a lot of things that happened. So now we go to the stats. Now we're starting to get interesting here. As of 2020, there was a poll done. 94% of the Americans approved of interracial dating. Now, in the 1950s, it was only 8%. By 2020, it was 94% of Americans say it was okay for them to date interracially. And what is interesting about this is that they did a study and showed the interracial makeup, between black men and white women, but also white men. And here's this interesting here. This is an interesting fact. The Toubab American man intermarried a lot with Asian women, and lesser so with Hispanic women, and even less so with black women. But yet and still, my brothers and sisters, this is rising as well. Our black sisters, in America, are starting to be married to Toubab American men. The white woman Okay, the Toubab American woman, she in turn married very few of the Asians, some from Hispanics, but she married more African American men. Interesting, isn't it? The white woman, when she jumped out of the bed of being white in the bed and jumped out of the bed and decided she was going to marry or take or have dating or whatever, they mostly, when they did go outside the race, they took some Asians and a little bit, some Hispanics and some, but overwhelmingly they chose black men to have relationships with. That's right. This is a proven fact. By 2009, I'm going to give you some interesting statistics. In 2009, 550,000 marriages, 354,000. Now listen to these whopping numbers. This is in 2009. 3,554 marriages between black men and Toubab American women. Listen to me good. 550,000 marriages, 3,540, 3,540 were black men and white women. In this same study, 196,000, were Toubab white American men and black American women. This is growing, my brothers and sisters. It's growing as well. Now, you would think that the melanated people would be married more so with black people. That's not the case at all. It's the exact opposite of that. The Hispanics and Asians tend to marry white than they do with black. And black men also married less Hispanics and Asians than the two. He was going to jump out of his bed, he would marry the white woman or have sexual relations with white women more so than he did with Hispanic and Asian women. So we see a pattern here again of the seeking, the desire, and the attraction between the Toubab American woman, which has been going on since the 1700s and even earlier in Europe, and the black man. This relationship has been festering for 300 years or more. So this situation has caused us to think. You sit there and we get upset now. Okay, we see this on TV. Why the black men are doing this and that? This is 300 to 400 years old, this particular issue. And it has not stopped. And matter of fact, it's even got more acute. And so what do we say to this? Are we against it? Africans born in America, African Americans, whatever you want to call yourself, are we against this relationship? And as I asked the question, many of our dear sisters are against this and still against this. And to their credit, even though I gave you a high number of numbers, overwhelmingly, black folks marry one another 3 times or 4 times more than they do outside their race. Even though when I'm shocked, I see the commercials in the United States, because I live here in Fez, Morocco, and I'll turn to CNN, I'll turn to some of the stations I can get. I find many commercials now, and I always kind of think it's like they're promoting this. I see the black man and a white woman inside the house. I've seen this a lot. Or they sitting in some mobile phone commercial together or something like this. This has been promoted quite a bit. I saw that. Salam alaikum, my dear brother Isaac. And this is something that I ask, why are they promoting this? When no more than 50 years, they were killing brothers if they married, even had sexual relations with the Toubab American woman. And now the commercials are full. So we look at the situation now, we're building to the point of, we look at the modern times of this, and we get to the point where we're seeing the black man is still more attracted to the black woman than he is to the white woman and the Hispanic woman and the Asian woman and the South Pacific woman, the Arab woman. He still married his own 3 to 4 times more than he does them. So that's a good note for the sisters to know. But unfortunately, my brothers and sisters, here is the detriment to this. Since the black man in America is dying at a fast clip, he's been incarcerated at a fast clip. Now we even have another genre that's happening. They are turning to homosexuality. And we have others who are so gone into gangsterism and being involved in mafias that they have lost sexual desire. And so our sisters have very little to choose from. And this is a detriment to our people. But that is a class all by itself. But I had to mention that factor. Again, my brothers and sisters, the black man and black woman, our black man and the family are still marrying with each other more so than the other races. And it's only a small percentage that they marry white woman and Hispanic woman and the Asian woman. But the one that gets the most ink, the one that gets the most heat, one that's most talked about is the black man and white woman genre, as though this is the predominant. It is not predominant. Even though I gave you high numbers there, those numbers are very, very small if you compare the marriages that go on when a black man marries. He's almost around about 90%. She's going to be black. So this is something that we have to think about. And this is why, in my humble opinion, we should not focus much on how many black men are with white women, because it looks like it's a lot because you see the movies and you see the commercials and you hear talk. But my brothers and sisters, this is a small percentage. We still marry within our racial classification. That's very interesting, but this is a fact. Now we're going to get into something. I'm going to start hitting hard here. The troubling classification by black folk on non-black folks. This is troubling, my brothers and sisters. Very troubling. We have many of our sisters today in America, in particular, out of hate and sheer jealousy, now are classifying homegrown African women on the continent and labeling them as Toubab. Yes, we are having this. And some have been very vocal about this. These are their black sisters, and they label them as Toubab, when in fact, when you talk about the color, the black African woman tend to be a shade or two darker than African Americans and less mixed with European blood. But they classify them as Toubab. I'm not saying all. I'm saying this troublesome classification is starting to happen now. And the reason for this is because African American men are now being sought tremendously in Africa. When they go to Africa, they're finding African wives. I don't care if they go to the north or they go down to the south. We have African women who are wanting to marry with African American men. Many African American sisters take exception to this and now begin to call black African women Toubab. But they don't call them, of course, in Mindi language. They call them a white woman. They call them a white woman, some other vernacular I can't mention here on YouTube. And this is troubling. This is very troubling, my brothers and sisters. Very troubling, because we're both Africans. So how could one be Toubab when one has more African blood than the other? And the one who has more African blood is labeled a Toubab. It's very troubling. Secondly, when African American men are marrying African women, many of our sisters are now calling this miscegenation. Can you believe this? Miscegenation is the miscegenation comes about when a black person marries a white, or a black person marries a Asian woman, or a black person marries a Hindu in India. That's miscegenation. But they're labeling miscegenation now when an African American man goes to Ghana, he marries a Ghanaian woman. They say this is miscegenation. This is what some African American women are saying now. It's coming out in print. And some are even talking on TV this nonsense. This is their black sister. They're calling them Toubab. And they said this is a mixed marriage, as though they're white women or Toubab women. And this is a shame. And this has got to stop. Now, the melanated women from the South Pacific, other people who have a lot of substantial black blood, African American men have married these women, especially like from Samoa, Tonga, Hawaii, and places. They have married these women. And if you know the genotype of these people, they are heavily, they have heavy black blood in them. And point of that is when you remember in the 70s and the 80s when they were wearing afros. The Samoan brothers, I know, I went to school in Carson, and the Samoan brothers, my brothers, they had afros as well. And they listened to the same music as I did. As a matter of fact, I spent 2 years in Samoa when I was a young man. And I'm telling you now, those people are black. They're mixed black. And when you look at the children are essentially fundamentally black. But yet and still, we still have this problem that we call even this dark-skinned, brown-skinned woman from the South Pacific, Toubab. It's wrong. Now, the belief that the African American woman holds on herself is that she believes that she's far superior to a true black woman, meaning an African woman in skin color. I'm talking about skin color and culture, because they have their culture here in Africa. But the African American woman considers herself to be superior in some regard. I don't quite, because I'm not a woman. I don't understand the significance of that, but I've heard this often. And they consider themselves far superior to them, our sisters in Africa, in beauty, manners, sexual prowess, and femininity. They don't consider the African woman any of that. But it's the exact opposite of that, because the African woman is all of that and then some more. Their beauty is off the charts. And the African American men who come here, and even African American women I'm not talking about all of them, they know this too. They'll tell you, they'll say, look, the sisters here are beautiful. Here in Gambia, the sisters here, the Ghanaian sisters are very beautiful. And they have manners and sex, and their sexual prowess is deep, and their femininity. But we have misguided sisters in America who say this. And again, this is wrong. What I'm getting to a point here, I'm going to get to that. Salam alaikum, my dear brother Murat. Let me see what he has to say. We also have to consider that marrying a Hispanic wouldn't necessarily be considered dating outside the race, because some Hispanic consider. Now, my brother talked real good here. Thank you for mentioning that, my dear brother Murat. This is true. This is still related. The Hispanics, when you look at them and their DNA, even the very white-skinned Mexican girl or boy has between some 3 to 20% African blood in them. That's correct. And let's look at something. We have a prime example of this. You look at the Toubab American woman and the African American man. They have children. You look at the children. Now compare that to the black man and who's married to a Mexican woman. The children are totally different than that of the relationship between the Toubab American woman and the black man. Totally different. When he marries a Dominican or he marries a Puerto Rican, these are black folks. Bottom line, over. It's it. They came on the same slave ships. The difference is that the Spanish took them. That's the difference. The Spanish took them and the Portuguese took them. But they're black folk, just like we are. That's right. And matter of fact, I'm going to tell you something, to be honest with you. And I always thought this, even when I was a little kid, raised up in Compton, when I used to see the Mexicans, even though I saw some light skin, but I always considered them. I said, there's something about them. I always think, because in those days, they hang around with the brothers. And I always considered them to be black folk. And I saw them marry. And I mean, I'm talking about the 50s and 60s. I saw them marrying. I saw the brothers marrying the Mexican girl, the Mexican man marrying the black girl. I didn't think nothing about it. Matter of fact, down the street, there was I remember we used to have a guy named was Tito. I remember him. His wife, he married with a black girl. No one thought anything about it because it was normal. But the things have changed over the years. We know that. But I'm making a point. And I saw Tito's children. They look like black folks to me. So he made a good point there. Now, we're going to get to another point as where to this. We have a problem also when the brother is starting to marry the African Arab. This is also now starting to be a problem with many of our brothers and sisters alike. This is one of the things that they don't like. The black man in America is more accepting to a degree of his brother marrying, mating, dating the Toubab American woman. But when it gets down to the African Arab woman, we have both the black man and a black American woman is against this, which is very, very troubling. Because now we get into another factor, which I don't want to talk about now because it's the head of the story, because I'm going to get into this. They have a problem with this because they see the Jordanian and they see the Lebanese and they see the Syrians and the Iraqis. They see very light-skinned, and they see some from the North Africa as well, Moroccans, Tunisians, Algerians, Libyans, and Egyptians. And they see the light-skinned color. And so we have black men and black American women both having a problem. I'm starting to get a lot of, I'm starting to get a lot of smut being sent to this chat, which is, it's really a shame that this is being put on my program. But we know the Toubab, we know how he is. We have 400 years history. We know what they are. And they're sending a lot of stuff like this. And it's funny. Here is this YouTube and Facebook is after us a lot. And yet they let this smut like this go. I get this all the time in my chat thing, all the time, smut. I complain, it is okay. But if I say one thing against the Toubab, especially calling them some names that we call them, then suddenly they want to throw you off the air. But I'm not going to let them distract us here because they don't want to hear this talk. But, we have a saying in Arabic, and we have a remedy for these type of people like this. We say, Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakil. We say this in Arabic about people like this. Okay. Now, okay, I just had to report this. I know we're not going to do anything about this. I know that. Now, we talk about Uncle Tom. And how do we know which is Uncle Tom? Is Uncle Tom the black man and the white woman? Is he Uncle Tom? Or do we have Uncle Tom as when he goes and helps the Toubab against the brothers. So which one is it? And so this is something that uh, we have to look at, and we have to say, well, which one is it? Why in the Black community we have this problem? We label the brother who's married to the white woman, the Toubab woman, we call them Uncle Toms. But the brother who assists the Toubab against other brothers, we don't call him that per se. I don't know why. So we have that. And this is an issue that I like to ponder with you. What is an apostate? Can we call a brother who's married to a Toubab woman apostate? That's something that we should think about. We should really think about that issue. Now, let's get to the causes of miscegenation between the brother and the Toubab woman. The Black man, as a general rule, when he does seek out the Toubab woman in America, that is, we're not talking about Europe and Canada or something in the West Indies or South America. I'm talking about the United States. The sense of, they believe that when they do have a white woman, that there's a sense of upward mobility, that somehow or another they have moved up in class, even though they only have $5 in their pocket. But when they have a white woman, suddenly they think they become rich. And this is not a reality, because there's no upward mobility when you marry a Toubab woman, because that doesn't mean you're going to get a job. Matter of fact, you may get discriminated against when you go to a job and they find out your wife is white. We see many cases in the civil courts, in the EEOC courts, when you have a Black man who's been working there and suddenly his white Toubab wife comes in and they begin to go after him because of it. So the upward mobility is a falsehood. But Black people in some ways think this way, that the minute, even our Black sisters, they may not have nothing, but they marry a white man, suddenly they think that the upward mobility is assured. It's not assured. Matter of fact, it's a detriment, because still in America, the Toubab American, even though they may say something, that they are agreement to it, that's for other families, but they don't want to see their daughters or their sons in their families. They say, yes, I think interracial marriage is okay, because why? It's happening outside their house. But inside their house, they don't want that. So the false sense that me, as a Black man, I marry a Toubab American woman, I'm going to gain notoriety and I'm going to have upward mobility as far as jobs, loans, and everything. It's not the case. That's a falsehood. It's the exact opposite of that. A lot of times it's a detriment. Our brothers believe that the Toubab is far more worthy for their love than that of our Black sisters. This is a fallacy, but is a true fact. Many of our brothers believe that the Toubab American woman is actually more lovable. She is more affable for them to love than a Black African sister. We still have that. Salam alaikum, my dear brother Saeed. We still have this. We still have this part. And this is, again, misguidance. Because we know also, this is a very sad certificate. I mean, it's a stat. The white woman, the white Toubab woman, and the white Toubab man marry, they have a more likely likelihood of less divorce than when a Black man and the Toubab American woman marry. They have almost twice as high divorce rate than the white couples do. So that should tell you there's no upward mobility in this relationship. Secondly, that doesn't mean that she's more lovable, because if she's more lovable, then why is the divorce rate high between the African American man and the Toubab American woman? The divorce rate between those two is extremely high, 2 times greater than the white couple, and 1.5 times greater than that when a Black man marries a Black woman. That's right. But even with that said, We still have the misguidance to believe that the black man seeks the Toubab American woman because she's more lovable, she's more agreeable, she's this and she's that. But statistics don't prove that out. Third, the African American man believes that the Toubab woman is a trophy to be paraded around in public as a masterpiece. And they're proud to display her as a showpiece as well. Look what I got. Look what I have here. Now, check this out. The psychological profile of this is when they marry African American woman, yes, they're proud of their wife, but they don't showcase her like this, nor do they parade her around like this. But why do they parade around the Toubab woman? This is a very interesting point. They believe them to be a trophy, as though you won her in a match, and they treat her as that, like a masterpiece, like a sculpture, like a picture, a masterpiece. They treat her this way, and they parade her off as that. But they don't do the African American woman in this regard, even though they're proud of her, but they don't treat her in this sense. This is a very interesting fact. Now, this is going to be kind of sexual. Please bear with me on this. The black man feeling is that the Toubab woman represents purity, cleanliness, and femininity. So they seek them out because in their mind, they believe that the Toubab American woman is just that. She's more pure. She's more more cleaner, and she's more feminine than the black American woman. That's right. They believe this. A lot of them believe this, and they say this. And I remember in my days, I can recall when the interracial date was kind of opening up, and you would ask her, hey, man, what's going on with this? And they would explain to you why. And some of this type of talk came out. Number 5. Many African American men bail out from the African American woman. They say that she's overbearing and she's masculine. But the white Toubab American woman is the exact opposite of that. This is the perception that they lay out. So he goes to the Toubab American woman because he claims that the black American woman is too overbearing and masculine. So he goes to sleep white because of this fact. Now, let's get into that. Is there some truth to this? In a lot of ways it is. We know that. But we know the causes of that. And matter of fact, there's even a scientific cause on why many of our sisters are this way. They have found a gene that has developed within the black American woman because of slavery. And this gene has caused them to have some behavioral patterns that are not in the norm. Not meaning that they're crazy, no. Because things happen to the human body when you go through extreme stress. And this stress is handed down for centuries. You think about that. The gene pool, there's going to be something that's going to be different. The same way that when they took the African slaves, you look at the African slaves when they came across, the strongest one survived, right? What happened? The strongest man and the strongest woman survived. They produced an offspring inside the United States that we see basketball players, football players, right? Baseball players, track and field. You see, there's some mutation that's happened that's created more of a super black, if I can say it this way. Taller, more muscular, run faster, jump higher, and stronger because of the genetic drift and because of the centuries of what has happened to them. The hard labor caused the gene pool to change. Now as a general rule, African American men are more muscular than the Toubab American man. This has been proven. And matter of fact, there's another thing that's also been proven. I saw that when I was in college, the study, that the black man, when you look at him, why he can run faster, because we know we have these genes, and the genes, there's a slow switch and fast switch. We have more of that. But also, The black man has longer legs generally and a shorter trunk. The white man, the Toubab man, has a longer trunk and shorter legs. That means he cannot run as fast in short distances, and he can't jump as high because he have a heavier trunk. We know this physiology. We know this is to be the case because it's been proven. And we also found that there's an extension of the heel. Can you believe this? That the African man have that the European man generally does not have. This, they said, because of the African genes. So we have differences. And it doesn't even leave there, my brothers and sisters. Even the genitalia between, and again, bear with me, the genitalia they have discovered way back in the 8th century by Yaqub Jahiz, who wrote, he was one of the first gynecologists, wrote about significant differences in the genitalia between the white woman and the black woman. Yes, the same function. Yes, have babies. The same function is there. But they found some differences between them. That's right. And he wrote about that. And he said he was trying to explain why this was. I won't get deeper into that, but you understand what I'm talking about. There are some significant differences there. Now, we also, the black man says all the aforementioned. Why is that? A lot of times we black men have a racial inferiority complex. We're believing that our children from a relationship with a white woman, Toubab woman, our children will be more attractive and most likely to succeed than if we marry a black woman. We still have this mentality in the black community today. We believe that our children will be more handsomer, their hair will be straighter, quote unquote. They'll be more handsomer, she'd be more pretty, the daughter, coming out from a white mother, Toubab mother, than with a black mother. This stems from the racial inferiority complex that we as black men have. So we seek out the white race in particular to have this type of child, when in fact there's nothing to support that. Even though we see on TV and movies now, we have all the racial mixtures that you can imagine with black now. But I didn't see, to be honest with you, we do have some mulatto women that are very attractive. But I've seen some of the other women who are mixed, meaning they were black and Japanese, black and Chinese, black and Hispanic, more beautiful than that of black and white. I don't know if you guys agree with me on that. I've seen, talking about in movies and in commercials and some in real life. I've seen pictures of magazines of the most beautiful black women in the world. Very few of them were mulatto women, but many of them were black and Hispanic, black and Asian. I saw that a lot. I saw one of them was rated as number 3. She was a Hindu. Her mom was Hindu. The father was African American. So we're starting to see this. So the fallacy of saying that when you marry a white, a Toubab, your children's going to come out better, it's not true. And come out more prettier, it's not true. And he's going to be more handsome, it's not true. I'm getting these, my brothers and sisters, please forgive me for this. Things are popping up in our chat room from these crazy Toubab who are sending this filth to the chat room. Now, we look at the other factor here, number 7. African American men, some believe that the Toubab woman is more liberal in the bedroom setting than their black female counterparts. This has been going on for a long time. And this is something that has been, I mean, even when I was a young man, we've heard this, that the Toubab American woman would be more sexually liberal in a lot of other areas than the black American woman, which in fact, in some ways, this is true. And this has been carried on now for decades. So the concept that some black men say is that the Toubab American woman is more liberal in the bedroom setting. This is why they want them, because of this particular situation. But I don't believe statistics will actually bear that out. That because we do have things as written by married couples where they talk about. You see almost the same things that are happening in American bedrooms, irrespective if she's white and he's black. We see the same things. See, so I know this is again a fallacy, because we know that what goes on inside the bedroom not necessarily will pan out to be a racial thing, because things happen inside the bedroom that are private, but people write about that. And therefore, I think this is not really actually correct, but its perception is that this is correct, that the Toubab woman is more liberal in the bedroom setting than the Black American woman. Not true, not true. Statistics doesn't bear that out. African American men who are looking for a wife don't want the Black American woman because they say, what? She's a better homemaker and less confrontational than the Black woman. Many believe this to be the case. So they say, you know what? I ain't gonna marry no sister. I don't want to be around the sister, because I know if I go marry her, she's gonna have fist fights with me. But if I go marry a Toubab American woman, I'm not gonna have this. So many seek out, and I'm saying this for the sisters to listen to me what I'm saying, because we have brothers feel this way, and you act accordingly to this message I'm giving you today. That the perception of far too many African American men is that the Toubab woman is more of a better homemaker and less confrontational than a Black American woman. This is something that we should think about. And to go along with this, number 9, Black American men in droves also hold on to another traditional view. They believe that the Toubab woman is mostly likely to accept traditional roles of the man as master of his household, and the Black woman is less likely to accept this. Now, let's look at that in some ways. There's some truth to this, but then the statistics don't really bear this out. Why? Because the marriage between the Black man and Black woman is a very small percentage. Still, that's right. But when they do decide to marry the Toubab woman, these are some of the things when you ask them, hey man, well, why'd you marry this Toubab woman? You hear, oh, she's more liberal in bed. Oh, she's a better homemaker. Oh, she treats me like a king inside the house. She cooks for me. She do this. She's not confrontational. But my first wife, she was African American, and she had fist fights with me all the time. We hear this. We've heard this so many times. And so, do the statistics point out that the Toubab woman is more readily acceptable of allowing the Black man to be the master of his home more so than the Black woman? Let's look at this. We hear the rumors of this. The statistics doesn't bear this out, because Black men are still marrying within the family, meaning the Black man and the Black woman, he's still marrying 90% of the time with her. So if this is the case, those percentages would be far less. Now, let me say this. It was at one time that Black men were up and Black women marriages up around 95 to 96%. By the 1920 or 2019, I'm trying to remember, now it's down to 90. So we're starting to see a backtrack now. We're starting to see more Black men are going to the white woman. And you say, well, Yahya, why is that? Statistics that show now is that as the Black man become more educated, he goes to college, right, in universities. He's coming in more contact now with white females, Toubab women. And when he becomes educated and graduates, he has a tendency to be more accepting of marrying a white female. Why? Because he had met and dated white females at the university. Especially this is true with African American or Black American, Africans born American men who are athletes, famous athletes who went to 99.9% white schools. So only women they could date were white women, and they end up marrying them. See, so we have this. And perception still lays out that the Black woman cannot accept the traditional roles. Do we have problems in this area? Yes, we do. We have serious problems in this. As I explained on another show, is because of what has happened to the Black man and because of the slavery, the handout from slavery, we've had this upside down where we have the Black society has become matriarchal, which destroys the natural order of things. And so we still have the concept is that the Black woman is so dominant and so domineering that she's not lovable. This is the perception. And yet, and still, my brothers and sisters, we have to look at something. The statistics don't bear this out because still we're at 90% of Black marriages, 90%. But when you look at commercials, when you hear talk shows, you see newspaper articles and magazines, it looks like it's almost 50% now. Black men, there's two Black men. One's going to marry white, another's going to marry Black. That's not the case. It's the exact opposite of that. 90% of the Black men still marry Black women. 10% they marry others. 10%. So we look at that particular instances. But we do have the problem, as I specified, about the dominance and the matriarchal system that has arisen in America. And a lot of that's because we're incarcerated. A lot of us don't have jobs. And therefore, our sisters have had to put on, as I spoke before on this on other talk shows as well, about she had to be the man and the woman of the house. And this has caused a problem. But it's no fault to her because she was put in a position that she could not win. If she was too soft, she could not raise her children because there's no man in the house. When she's too hard, she loses the man. You see what I mean? So she cannot win. And the society in general is against her. Every poll that is taken every couple of years, the most hated woman in America is still the African American woman. She's got a bad rap. And they promote this. And you ask the question, why are they promoting this? And why are they promoting all these commercials that show the Black man with the Toubab woman? There's something to that. When 50 years, as I said before, they would have lynched that brother for being on the commercial, even holding hands or being married to, they would have lynched him and castrated him. But suddenly now they're allowing this to go on and they see this and they're promoting this a lot in commercials. So this is interesting. And the perception that many African-American men will say, you hear this even on talk shows and in magazines, that the Black females seek confrontation. Yes. Now, think about this. They said they seek the confrontation and most likely to have physical confrontations than the Toubab woman. This is prevalent. Many brothers will say, hey, man, you ready to meet? Yeah, man, I'm ready to marry. But you know what? Hey, man, I'm not going to marry this sister. Cannot. Because why? I know that the minute I marry her, maybe 1 day, 2 days after I marry her, she's going to have a fist fight with me. This is perception. Or down the road, a year from now, she's going to have a fist fight. Once we start to marry her, she knows she's got me locked in. She start having fist fights with me. This is perception. Is there some truth to this? Not really. But we do have a lot of that. We do have a lot of physical confrontations that because, again, scientists have found there's a gene that has kind of warped because of what has happened to us, because of the fear factor. Our women have been raped and pillaged and ravaged and been mistreated for hundreds of years. And a gene has warped causing her behavior to be off-skewed somewhat. They have proven this now. 2 years ago, there was a scientist who found this gene because they were trying to figure out why African-American women had certain attitudes. They found now that she can't help this because there's some gene that has mutated because of fear, because of poverty, because of slavery, because of being ravished, because of being looked down upon, because she had to work to be the man and the woman. She had to work a lot of hours. She died young, and she passed this gene on to her daughter. This is what they found out, my brothers and sisters, which is very interesting. This is why I say to you now that we should be very careful, all of us, me included, when we lambast the Black woman in America. We should be very careful. Even me, we should be very careful of that. Because with the statistics being shown out here now, she cannot help this. And she also, there's another thing that's happened. They found that this gene also, there's another gene that's causing her to even get more heavier than she should be. All of this is arising because of our situation inside the United States. We cannot blame her. She did not ask to be born with the warped genes of this caliber that causes some things to be more confrontational, or to be more masculine, and she begin to be more fatter. This is something is developed in them because of what is happening to our women. So we have to be very mindful, my brothers, on this fact. And we should be also mindful that, even me included, before we start talking, we should understand what has happened to them first. We should be very careful of that. And the other perception now, too, is that the Black man says the Black woman cannot accept and respect her husband, whereby the perception spread that the Toubab woman can. How many times we've heard this? We hear this even on talk shows. The brother will get up there and say, because he was in college, he went to some all-white university. He married, he had sexual escapades with many hundreds of white women at the university. He married one of them. He gets on a talk show and he says, hey, man, sister can't accept, she can't respect me. She cannot respect me, but my white wife can. But you know what? Statistics is exact opposite of that, my brothers and sisters. You know that? We're finding now, again, that when the Black man marries this Toubab American woman, he's most likely to end up in divorce than if he married a Black American woman. You see how crooked things have changed? You see how they promoted this type of relationship, when in fact it's a troubled relationship. They most likely will end in divorce, the Toubab woman and the Black man. Yes, they will most likely end up in divorce, more so than if he married a Black American woman. Get those facts straight, my brothers and sisters. That's why I'm talking about this today, because I want this laid out. I know some may be angry with me, and it doesn't matter, but I want you to do your research, because we've all been guilty of misinformation and disinformation about Black men and Black women, as I specified on another show. We're guilty of this. And this is one of the fallacies here, that the Black woman cannot accept and respect her husband, but the white woman can. And here's another factor, my brothers and sisters. They find out that the Toubab American woman have a latent racism that happened to them. The prime example of that is, remember Van Jones of CNN? What happened with him, with his white wife? And we're starting to have this. One of these, this is very interesting. And I want somebody to do a study on this. I want some scientists to find out, why is this Toubab woman doing this? She's married to a Black man. She's had his children. Suddenly she wakes up from the bed and says, you know what? I don't like this anymore. I don't want any more Black children. I don't want to sleep with a Black man anymore. This has happened. And the Van Jones's case also points this out. Suddenly they have this latent racism that was somewhere hidden up in the lungs or somewhere hidden up in the legs, and suddenly it pops up. And she wakes up one morning after they have children, they bought a house, and they've been raised 10, 11, 15 years. She says, I don't want to sleep with a Black man anymore. We had this happening. Yes, my brother, sisters, it's happening. And again, this supports that. Why? Because the statistics show that when the black man marries the Toubab woman, he's most likely to divorce than if he had a black wife. Now, let's get our statistics right. It's not true. She is not more respectful of her husband than the black woman. But they promote because they show on the commercial. And I hate this. I personally believe this. Our African American women should not get on these commercials when they ask them to be mannish. They should not, because that promotes a stereotype that continues. Remember the Aunt Jemima? Remember that Aunt Jemima you just on the bottle of a syrup? I think it is. I can't think the syrup has been in the United States a long time. I can't think of the syrup that we use for pancakes. Aunt Jemima, remember, big, heavy black woman, and so forth and so on, showing her to be very masculine, because the perception is, and when they make commercials still with black women on it, they still don't show her as feminine. They show her as masculine, talking rough and flinging around and so forth. That promotes a stereotype that they should stop that. They should stop that. If someone is going to go on a commercial and they come to our sister and say, look, I need you to act like you know what I'm talking about, a bad word. I want you to act this way. I want you to act mannish. Okay. And they pay her $100,000 for this commercial. She gets up there and perpetuates a issue that I just talked about here. That shows them to be ultra mannish and masculine and not feminine. We should stop that, because one of the reasons why the black man seeks the white woman, because the Toubab man, he paraded this woman in commercials, on the billboard, in naked magazines, and he promoted her as a sex object and as a ultra feminine woman. Men are men, regardless of, irrespective of their race, and men have a tendency to be attracted to that type of stuff. So black men said they got a steady diet. Every time you drive down the street, you see a beautiful white female acting feminine. They turn the TV set on. They see a feminine white female. See, this has been promoted. But then the exact opposite. They show the black woman talking rough. They show her talking mannish. They show her talking domineering. And they show inside of a house that she's managing the home and her husband is a punk. You see, this is one of the causes why we have this problem today. Why we do have some brothers to go to the white woman, because of the stereotypes. And we are influenced by the media. This is true. And this is a very, very sad epitaph. Because when you promote a woman, now we start promoting our sisters in the same fashion. You'll see now others starting to go to her. If they show her in a feminine, and we do, and now in the commercials, we have some beautiful sisters now. I mean, more so than way back. Now we have some absolutely stunningly beautiful sisters in commercials. Some of them you just can't take your eyes off. Even as a Muslim, we should not. But you know, you look, and I have to turn off, but because you know we have rules in that. But you marvel at how beauty our African American sisters are. And in some of these commercials, even in the movies, you got some stunningly beautiful African American women. So they're starting to promote that, but we don't have enough of it. And this again leads to why the black man goes to a white woman. These facts I just said here. And the latent racism is starting to pop up. I saw another article of another white woman. She was married 3 years. Here she's pregnant with her husband, her African-American husband's baby, and she got up and said she didn't want to do this anymore. And when they asked her, what do you mean you want to do this? He's black. I don't want to be married to a black man no more. This is happening, my brothers and sisters. So this fallacy here that says that the Toubab woman would be more respectful of her husband than a black American woman, it's not true. We start to see exact opposite of it now. So I want that to be okay. Now we have another one of these. Porno things sent to my chat here. It's very shameful. But you know, my brothers and sisters, as you hear me say here now, I will not let these racist Toubab to do this. They have done this to other African Americans too. by trying to disrupt our programs. They don't want us to talk. We're not their slaves. Slavery ended a long time ago, and we are not intimidated by their stuff. Okay, we're not. So even though they come on this show here and they try to defame me by bringing like this one guy talking about bacon bits, and there's another nasty comment that's been generated here, but I'm hoping it's been removed. I try to remove it. I'm not going to be swayed by them. And Subhanahu wa ta'ala, who I fear, and I ask his permission. If he allows me to go on the next day, I'm in life, that's what I go by, not by the racist Toubab who's doing the stuff that's in the chat room here. They can't do anything because they don't have enough intelligence or enough fortitude to come on to argue and debate. So they send pornography. Hasbi Allah and Nirmukal Alayhim. That's what we say in Arabic against them. So my brothers and sisters, I've been long today because this topic is something. Now, I'm going to say some things here too. It is a simple fact that we do have a problem between the relationship between the black man and black woman. There's no doubt about that. We have some problems in this factor. We do. And some are just natural. Some are just natural problems. But because of the relationships that we have inside the United States, we're not in power. We are sitting behind the 8-ball that causes these problems. We look at the job market. There's a black man and a black woman. The Toubab says, okay, I'm going to hire her, and I'm going to promote her quicker. And I'm not going to promote this black man. I'm going to put her in a position, and I want her to go after my black employees. We've had this happen. I remember one of my first jobs, I had this. We had a hatchet woman. She was a sister, so-called sister. And all she did, she went after us. And she fired most of us. Where the white or rock count first, they were doing the same thing. They laid or whatever. She didn't fire them. She didn't go after them. She spoke to them. Hi, how you doing, Robert? But me, and others, she was very disrespectful. So they pit us together in such a way to cause the friction. And so when these type of situations happen, we have problems. Now, let's look on the African continent. The things that I'm talking about here are not in effect in Africa, because the African man generally does not marry the white woman. The exact opposite of that in America. That's right. The percentages are so low that even now Africa's been flooded with Toubab American, Toubab European women, and they're coming there looking for sexual conquest. Some even have children by African men. And our brothers don't marry them here on the continent. Even here in Morocco, even the African Arab doesn't marry them generally as a rule. That's right. The exact opposite of the brother inside the United States. He marries the Toubab woman. But here on the continent, she doesn't get that kind of play. Or they may, some of the younger brothers, they may play around a little bit here and there, but they don't take them home to mama. They don't take them home to the village. Very few do that because they're gonna, the mentality of our African brothers and sisters, and it's a general rule, they don't like that. And I'm gonna tell you something in Sudan happened. This in 2008, 2009, I was there. Sudan is a black Arab country, okay? Black African Arab state. And some of the most beautiful women been declared have been there. And I can attest to that. We got black women there that are off the charts in beauty. We had Toubab to come there to Sudan. That's right. And as a general rule, they would not marry with them, even though they were Muslims. They had doubt about their Islam. And to the credit of the black woman in Africa and in the Caribbean and in America, she tends not to fall into any traps. She don't marry them as a general rule. Why is that? Because I think there's something inside her innately that tells her that if she marries and date and have children, that those children and offspring will lessen our people, will give far inferior offspring. And I believe that our sisters are generally not attracted to the Toubab men. I saw this there in Sudan a lot. Yes. And I saw white American Muslims and European Toubab Muslims come looking for Sudanese wives. They couldn't get them. They didn't. They had a hard time. One was looking for years. But when I stepped over there, I had no problem. If I wanted to marry, I could marry anytime. I mean, many. It was no problem. Easy, very simple. That's interesting, isn't it? So we have something, and again, we have to look at something, my brothers and sisters. The Black woman generally don't date and marry Toubab men. There's something in their makeup that don't allow them, and they're not attracted to them generally. So who is actually holding up our race? It's them. That's right. And they are most likely not to jump in bed with the Toubab, unless they're forced to in slavery or some situation where they have no other choice. Like what happened in the South, in antebellum South, where the roving Toubab cop would get a Black woman, throw her in the back of the seat, and they ravish her. And in those days, the police and the Klan were one, and she had no recourse in courts and nothing like that. But as a general rule, she's not attracted to them. That's a very interesting fact that we should ponder, my brothers and sisters. So even though we're talking about a situation like this, we look at the other side of this. Our Black race is still going on. We're still producing fine women and children. And children, I mean, we're producing beautiful Black women here on the continent and in America. And we're still producing good sons from our Black women. And our Black women are still raising our sons to be good. I'm a testament to that. My mom, I know, I talk 1,000 times to my wife. I tell her how my mom was. All brothers in my era, we knew our mothers, how our mothers pampered us. These are Black women, okay? 99.9%, they were Black women, not white. Our ancestral sisters pampered their sons. That's right. I can testify. I'm old man now. I can still remember how my mom did me. I still remember coming home from school. I can look at I know in the lunch pail, those days we carried a lunch pail, we little kids going to the school. I know what I had in there. Mom had my goodies. I come home from school. Mom had everything white, everything was there. My goodies, she knew what I wanted. She knew my special meals. Our Black women have pampered my generation, and all the brothers from Compton, I know they would tell you the same thing. All our mothers did the same thing. They did the same thing. And they are a testament to that. We can still remember the things as we were 5, 6, 3, 10 years old with our mothers, how she treated us. Again, this is a testament to the greatness of our women. And so I had to bring that out. There's a lot of things I do not like, and I've mentioned that today, because I don't like the perception that some of our sisters are doing today of calling African women Toubab. It's wrong. But I'm going to tell you something right now. If you're talking about taking care of the Black race, it's not the white woman that's been doing that. It's our sisters been doing that. Our sisters are still the protectors of our race. And she's still raising fine sons and daughters. It's not the Toubab woman. It's her. Our Black women are still producing these fine athletes, doctors, attorneys, so they're still doing this. Engineers, they are still raising these fine young men and women. So that's something you sisters should be proud of. Don't let anybody, my brothers and sisters, especially our sisters, let her take a back seat, because she doesn't have to. Because the Toubab woman has never went through what she has went through. And she's still standing strong, and she's still producing. Now, I'll close here because I've been long today. What about this problem? Is it a problem actually between the black man and the black woman? No, it's not a problem. I'm going to tell you why. Percentages are still low that a black man will marry a white woman. Or he may in high school and college, he date, play around, have a little fling here and there. As a general rule, he does not. He does not marry her. So it's not a problem. Don't let the TV and magazines and misinformation, disinformation affect our sisters to the point of belief that they think this is a problem. And they should not get upset because the African-American men, we know the pool in America is dim. It's very small because they're incarcerated. They've been killed off. They're gangsters. And now they're starting to run to Africa. And they're marrying African women. I know that. I'm a testament to that. But Muslims, we have different rules. I won't get into that. But we know African-American men are coming to Africa and they're marrying African women. So we know the marriage pool for our sisters in America is even starting to get even smaller. So that is a problem. So in a nutshell, my brothers and sisters, the miscegenation between the black man and the white woman is overblown. Even though it's been going on for centuries, it's an isolated genre. It's happened. Yes, we have mulattoes all through the history. And we've had this, but most of the mulattoes were created by white men having indentured or slave women. This is generally the situation, creating the mulatto race. And it was a hardcore Toubab racist historian who made a comment about mulatto. He said in his letter, he said that he said God made the black man, God made the white man, but the devil made the mulatto. If this is the case, he felt that way, then why was he having sexual relations with a black woman? He said God made the black man, God made the white man, but the devil made the mulatto. And he's the one who created basically the mulattoes in America in particular. You see what I mean? So this, in a nutshell, my brothers and sisters, is something that we have to come to grips with. When your son comes home and he says, Mom, Dad, I have a girlfriend here and she's white. She's a Toubab. How are we going to react to that? What are the statistics about that? We have 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old girls in high school. Is the white Toubab woman more likely to have sexual relations than a black girl at that age? The statistics doesn't bear that out either. But the rumor is that the white girl, the Toubab girl in high school, is more sexually active than the black girl. Not necessarily the case. It's not necessarily the case. But we do have this problem. Well, what would our parents say? Our sons come home now. And he says, hey, Dad, guess what? I got a girlfriend. She's white. She's a Toubab. How are we going to react to that? Or he comes in now, he's a grown man. He says, Dad, my fiance is a Toubab. So these are some of the questions that some of our parents are facing today. And one more last fact. The black man is married to every nationality you can think of on this earth. I saw something the other day that actually blew me away. Black men are going all the way even into Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, and all those other places and finding wives. Even in some of the hardcore white areas of Eastern Europe, white women are chasing, Toubab women are chasing African-American men when they come there for vacation. We see African-American men are going to Thailand. They're going to the Philippines, Indonesia. They're finding wives. They're going to Japan, China, finding wives. They're going to Central America, South America, especially Colombia. Now the African-American men are marrying Colombian girls in droves. Now you find black men married to all kind of different nationalities today. This is evident by the commercials. We see some of the commercials. You ask, who is this actress? And you look at her. Her mommy is Dominican. Her mommy is Brazilian. Her mommy is Japanese. Her mom's Korean. Her mom's Chinese. Her mom's Filipino. We see this now. The black man is running all over now, having wives, and the pool for our black women to have a marriage is very, very, very slim now. They're saying 34% of our black women out of 100 will not have husbands. That's a detriment, my brothers and sisters, to the race. This is in America. We ain't talking about Africa. We're talking about America. And I would suggest one more thing, and I will close. Are we at the point now, if we get 50%, where 50% of if we get 10 black women, American women, African-American women, 5 of them won't have husbands. Should we go to institute some polygamy or polyandry to where we can keep our race in a healthy position, where maybe the black man who can afford it and who's benevolent enough can have 2 sisters in a marriage, he has 2 wives, in order to preserve and to protect our sisters? Should we consider that? I think we should, because now we are 34%. That means 34 of our sisters will not be married. If there's 100 black women, 34 of them will not be married. That's a big percentage. That is a big percentage, my brothers and sisters. That's something we should think about. And that's something we should ponder. Now, polyandry and polygamy, that's another class in itself. I'm not here to debate that. But I'm only offering suggestions that would empower us and that would keep our race strong, because we're up at 34% now. And I believe maybe those percentages may be growing higher, because I think when they labeled that, it was 2010, 2012, 13, it was 34%. It may be higher now. So we're starting to have higher percentage of our sisters not having being able to be married. So we have to do something to institute. We got to find some medium, something we're going to do to have protection. We can protect our sisters, because this is not working, where she's going to be now, she has no child. That means there'll be one less black person walking on this earth. And as Malcolm said in one of his famous speech, he said that after everything is finished and done, black people will still be walking the earth. When he said that, I laughed, because it's true what he said. But we are starting to see lulls here where our sisters are not being able to have husbands. 34%. There's 100 black women. 34 of them will not have a husband. Those are high statistics. They're much higher than that of the Toubab woman and the Asian woman. Those statistics are too high. We got to figure that out. So that's another class, another discussion altogether. My brothers and sisters, for those who showed up today, thank you for showing up, my brother Saeed. And how you doing, my dear brother Soul Journey? How you doing, my dear brother? I haven't seen you in a long time. And Isaac, as usual, my dear brother, thank you. And my sister, B. Stanton, thanks a lot, my dear sister, for showing up. And today, if some of you saw some of the pornography laced things that was here, please forgive me for that. I'm a target for that now. I've angered the Toubab tremendously, which I don't care. And like I said, this is the way they're gonna fight me here with this type of smut and filth. But don't let that sway you, my brothers and sisters, and stuff like that. Always put your trust in Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and you pray against these type of people like this, because they still think that we are their slaves, and we're not our slaves. We are free black men and women. And so they don't want to see Saeed's program. They don't want to see my program or any of the other brothers. They want us to sit back on the sideline there and praise them. I refuse to do that. I refuse to do that. I will not praise them. I will not do that. I'm talking about the racist ones. I'm not talking about all. I'm talking about the racist ones who do this kind of stuff like this. This is who I'm talking about. Those who cause us problems. Those who legislate against us and fight us. Those who I'm talking about. Not not our friends that we grew up with and so forth. We're not talking about them. We're talking about these other ones here. So, my dear brothers and sisters, I gave you something today and kind of unorthodox talk about the black man and his family. Next week, inshallah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah ta'ala, I may be perhaps, I'm going to work with my dear brother here, Happy Companion, on a show as well. Perhaps we'll see if we can get the logistics down. And I'm going to do a section here on the black man and the African Arab. You'd be surprised what we have found out. You'd be surprised what we found out about this. You talk about the situation between the black man and a white woman. We got situations with this as well. So my next talk, inshallah ta'ala, the black man and his family, this will be the black man and the African Arab. Inshallah, subhanahu wa ta'ala wills this, we'll get into that. So my brothers and sisters, thank you for showing up and keep the faith, my brothers and sisters. And those inside the United States, please be careful when you go out. Please be careful. Don't take nothing for granted because you live in a war zone now. Be very careful. Okay, things can happen at any moment now. You know that. Flooding. There could be some road collapse, buildings coming down. Subhanahu wa ta'ala is very angry at what's happened inside the United States and all the killings that have done. And now he's taking it out, his wrath. And this tornado that swept through the 6 states was devastating. Subhanahu wa ta'ala, in my estimation, and Allah alam, I don't know if it's true, but I suspect this, is that that his punishment on America is very severe. And just be careful out there, my brothers and sisters, okay? So I'll leave you, my brothers and sisters, with the beautiful words of the language that's Afro-Asiatic. It's called Arabic. Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.